Hey, what's good, guys? So we're happy to have our friend Vanessa with us
Yeah.
today, and it's been amazing since Joe and I started this journey. Vanessa's been like one of the first ones that we really kind of established a connection with, and just shared, you know, a belief system kind of along the way, and just kind of watched each other help out other people. And we're excited to
Yeah.
have you just kind of talk about emotions and what they can do to our health and how they can be triggered and or
Yeah.
what they can trigger and just how they affect the body. So excited to have you, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy to be here and to be sharing this time with you
Yeah.
because yeah, like Josh said, it's we hit it off immediately because I feel like we're very aligned
Yeah.
in
Right.
our mission, which is to get people better and
Hmm.
to bring
Yeah.
hope and just your authenticity, just you're both so genuine. It's like I see your heart in the
Yeah.
work that you do, and I think that's why we've connected so much, right?
Likewise.
It's
Yeah.
not about the dollar, it's about getting
Yeah.
people's lives back. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I'm just so pumped to be here and just to have
Yeah.
this conversation.
Thanks for joining, Vanessa. And I want to talk about that because I think, when we're struggling and we suffer and we go through these great, deals of chronic illness and these terrible symptoms, you know, we want to just show people that there's hope and help out there. And that's like you said, uh, the authenticity, the heart really shows through when you really want to see people well and you want to make a
Right.
difference in many people. Just healing, overcoming some of these things, and a big part of that, like Josh said at the beginning, and a lot of what you do is navigating these uncomfortable and stressful, overwhelming emotions on the healing journey, and sometimes before it and after it. And I
Yeah.
think that this is like an amazing topic for us to dive into today. Do you want to kind of just, for those of you guys that don't know, Vanessa, she's big in the grief work. She's got her program Haven out there, and then is Your Grateful Guide on social media. But a big part of what you teach and talk about is a lot about grief and emotions. And I think it's really important for us to dive in. You
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
let's
And
dive
so
into
ready.
it.
yeah, I had a question for you, Vanessa, too, as you
Yeah.
dive into this, and I think as we're talking about emotions and even Joe, like I'm curious, I think this would be a great starting point is a lot of people out there with chronic illness, but do you guys believe that your emotions can make and keep you sick? I mean, obviously
Yeah,
we have
Ooh.
external factors, whether it's Lyme, fibromyalgia, mold, whatever that event is, but grief and emotions, do you believe that they can actually keep the body sick?
yeah,
So you beat me to it,
yeah,
and Josh, because that was going to be my starting point.
yeah,
I was going
Good.
to start by saying that I have seen. Okay, so I've worked with uh, over 1,000 people at this point,
yeah,
Wow.
and what is wild
yeah.
is how many people, how many perfect storms
Mm-hmm.
started as a result of a loss,
Yep.
like an immense loss, whether
Mm,
it's a loss, of a loved one, the loss of a career, the loss of a relationship.
yep.
So that, right? And then there's this connecting story of, and I didn't have time to grieve it.
Mm-hmm.
I was in survival.
Yep.
And then that continues. So I've worked with people where, they're telling me all this stuff, right? Of like, oh, I had this stress and that stress, and we're maybe working together for 2 years. I had this one client, and I didn't find out that she had the traumatic loss of
Yep.
her father just before
Yeah.
her illness started. And
Yeah.
so I do see through lines of where people have this immense loss, lack of support,
Mm-hmm.
no resources to move with it, and also the beliefs that come with emotion,
Yeah.
right? The beliefs of like it's not safe to grieve, or
Yep.
it's not safe to be angry, or it's whatever
Mm-hmm.
it might be, or I'm not, if I'm angry, I'm a bad person, whatever it might be, right? All of these emotions. And so to answer your question, yes,
Yeah.
100%. I see this correlation and connection between a loss, an immense loss. And when
Mhm.
we think about loss and grief, right? I love how David Kessler always explains it as grief is the change that happened that we didn't want.
Yeah.
So, like, think of that for an instance, right?
Yeah.
So, we've all experienced change that we didn't want or didn't
Hmm.
expect and didn't deserve,
Yeah.
right? And so, with that comes grief. And so,
Hmm.
all of us are passing grief and like jumping into
Yeah.
everything else and realizing that when we're bypassing grief, we're bypassing healing. And when we're in this experience of loss, it shakes our sense of safety.
Yep. Yep.
Safety.
Uh-huh.
And if you
That's what
know
it's all
me,
about.
that is
Yeah.
like the core of all the work
Yeah.
that I do. You know, my membership is a haven, a safe
Yeah.
haven.
Yeah.
For me, it is about safety. And whatever time in your life you lost that sense of safety, maybe you didn't ever fully have it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, 100%, this loss, grief, emotion, all of these things, connecting to this lack of safety, support, stability, being held, all of those
Hmm.
things, of course, they're going to put us into this state of chronic survival,
Yep.
right? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Oh, that's
agree, and I'm glad you talked about that because I think we see the exact same thing with it was with ourselves, but with other people, the whether it's loss of identity, loss of loved one, loss of relationship, there's always that level of stress of that unwanted change, and I didn't ever really thought about it as always grief, but you illustrate it kind of in a good way where it is like all these emotions are grief in a way, but when I look at it, it's like fear, it's anger, it's frustration, it's whatever it is, it's all of the emotions, shame, not feeling good enough. And I don't know if you had this experience as well, Josh and Vanessa, but this is something I from a male's perspective. I'm sure women and other people deal with it too. Not feeling safe to even feel emotions is a
yep,
thing that I
absolutely.
experienced as I was growing up. It's almost shameful to feel emotions as a guy growing up. I'm sure in our generation, me and Josh are in our 40s now, and I think you are as well,
Yeah.
Vanessa. Not to put your age out there, but
We're all
like,
the same age.
yeah, but like not being able and feeling safe to grieve and feel emotions
Yeah.
as they arise and kind of suppressing them and pushing them away and ignoring them and
Yeah,
just white knuckling through life is part of what I believe got me sick. Obviously Lyme and other things, but it's part of the perfect storm for me. And
storm. Yep.
as I've learned, to the regulation tools and healing, I've had to learn to befriend and be okay with some uncomfortable emotions that arise throughout the healing journey, whether it's triggers that happen in the moment, or things even just when they come up about a past memory or something that I didn't fully process, still comes
Yeah,
up and arises, and
yeah,
not feel fear when the emotions arise, allow them to pass. And honestly, part of what I talk about and what we talk about is acceptance, allowing them to be there. And sometimes you feel like shit, and that's okay, that's okay. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I feel like that's a part of it
no,
that I
I think
yeah.
that's good, Joe. And I think that, for the people that are listening, I think a lot of people would ask questions. Well, how do these emotions relate to my chronic illness,
Yeah.
or why
Yeah.
I don't feel well? And, the science behind it's astounding. Like,
Yeah.
emotions trigger nervous system responses. And
Hmm.
I think that that's one of the things is when we create safety, when we shut down the alarms, when the body feels safe, we'll feel better. And this is what we say.
Yeah.
And this isn't to ever tell anybody that their chronic illness is in their head, but grief, fear, all these emotions play a role in keeping our immune system out of check, gut, whatever. And our body isn't functioning optimally. So, if you're then, you have grief from the past or all these things came up. I noticed, my mom passed. I know that we share that,
Yes. Yeah.
Vanessa, losing a parent and Joe as well,
Yep.
that and just things that happen in our childhood. What I noticed is kind of crazy is these things began to come up as I began to physically heal from the chronic illness that I was dealing with. And what I noticed is they're all intertwined. And
Yeah.
what's crazy is this is what doctors don't tell you, but I feel like, at least on my healing journey, and I'm not sure if this is with you guys, that this was the biggest unlock. This is what I saw the biggest part from. So, if we have unprocessed grief, or we have fear, or we don't feel safe, and we're in that, freeze, shut down state, that's all attached to these emotions that prompt a chemical response.
Yeah.
When we don't feel safe, the brain perceives a threat, emotional or physical, and it can trigger a freeze or shutdown, which we were talking about before, the dorsal vagal response and the polyvagal theory, which makes people feel heavy, still, disassociated. They can't move. I mean, there's a whole myriad of symptoms. We could all spend an hour talking about the
Yeah.
symptoms that
Yeah.
set us chained to the couch that
All of
we.
them. Yeah.
But what we don't realize is these emotions and these thoughts prompt chemical messages. Our neurotransmitters and hormones are released. And that's where the cortisol, stress,
Yeah.
fear, anxiety, all these different things come. But when we feel safe, what do we feel? When we begin to do things we love, there's endorphins, there's dopamine, there's positive emotions that make
Yeah.
us feel better. So I'm just curious with you guys, what your thoughts are on being attached to this. Just as we go through, we create a space of safety, but as we begin to feel safe, I think one of the things that people would ask a lot is, one, how do I create safety? Like, how do I begin
Mhm.
to feel safe to do whatever the work looks like? And, that, I guess, yeah, that would be my first question is, Vanessa or Joe, when people come in,
Yeah.
obviously we see people that are completely fried. Like they feel like
Mm.
they're dying. They're just overwhelmed, emotionally, just completely dysregulated. How do we help them create a sense of safety to start feeling better?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. And I'm
Yeah.
going to answer by saying there are many roads to
Yeah.
safety,
Yep.
many pathways to regulation,
Mhm.
um, and that it should be unique to you in some way and be authentic to you, right? So we want to recognize that, yeah, there's no perfect formula.
Yeah.
But there are some commonalities, some foundational things
Mhm.
when we're talking about safety. And so, I know, with you guys practicing in indifference and
Yeah.
acceptance with
Yeah.
sensation, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, the sensation is here, but can I sit with it and allow it?
Mhm.
Same with emotion, right?
Yeah.
And so we know that a lot of the times we are able to do, or we know that we have an emotion in our heads. Like,
Mhm.
I'm so angry at the person, right? Or at this thing. Rarely do we notice it in our body,
Yeah.
right? But the truth is, or the way that I see it is, it actually happens in the body first.
Yeah.
And then there's this message to the brain to compute the state that we're in. So if we know anger before it's computed here and recognized starts with like tension,
Yeah.
right? Our shoulders, our fists, our jaw, tightening our chest. We start to experience that sensation. And if anger is not safe, then the brain is going to do what it needs to do, which is going to trying to distract you, protect you. So
Yeah.
that's where like the symptom might come in as well, where we notice that I have, for myself, even grief.
Yeah.
Like grief is just one of the heaviest experiences,
Mhm.
also one of the most transformative.
Mhm.
But to talk on symptom wise, when I lost my father, 3 years ago. And again, I had done the regulating.
Yeah.
Like I knew what I was, I did all of that stuff, but I had never experienced loss, traumatic loss to this
Mhm.
extent.
Wow.
And man, did it like scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when my beautiful brain, my creative brain created a symphony in my body
Mm.
to distract me from the grief.
Yeah.
And so it showed up like things that were more familiar to me: pain, anxiety,
Yeah.
tension. And all of these things were protecting me from the grief itself.
Mm.
So I had to start building safety with it. And part of that was slowly, incrementally allowing the grief. Like we're talking, can I sit with this for
Yeah.
like 10 to 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Allow it, get to
Yeah.
know it better. Like,
Yeah.
where does the grief live in my body?
Mhm.
Right? That was big for me. Instead of going into the story, can I see where it lives?
Yeah.
What it feels like, what color it is, what
Mhm.
sensation it is, and sit with it and connect to a sense of safety with that. So maybe I'm going to
Yeah.
use the somatic tool. And so there was a slow, gradual, because you asked about how do we build safety? It
Mhm.
needs to start slow. And I
Yeah.
love somatic based resources for it. But also beliefs around it,
Yeah.
recognizing that there's just a part of me that believes that grief is unsafe.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
likely came from when I was younger and had this experience. I don't have to figure it out. I can be
Right.
aware of that and
Mm.
also recognize there's another part of me that knows I can do this, that was created for this. And
Mm.
how can I hold both of these here now?
Yeah, that's beautifully said. That's beautifully said. Because, yeah, I think we all have these judgments at times. I mean, even now, there's some times where I'm like, something comes up and I feel like I shouldn't be feeling this way. I've done so much work around this. But
Yes.
and that's what I want to talk about too. And this is something that I've learned on my journey is when things arise, like I had mentioned in the past, like when you're triggered by something, whatever it is, and that trigger is like it's bringing up some memory or belief or whatever tied to an emotion that maybe was not felt, or maybe like feeling invalid. It can be whatever. um and then having this judgment like I shouldn't feel that, that makes it so much worse. So this
Yes.
is
Judgment.
yeah,
The judgment. When
yeah,
you tell your emotions that they're not supposed to be that way, then
yeah,
you're telling them there's something wrong.
exactly,
And then there's a punishment that needs to happen after,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. So there's this yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because
No,
that's such a big
No,
thing, the judging.
exactly, and this goes for all things when it comes to chronic illness, whether it's symptoms, emotions. I've talked about this before, and we've mentioned in our class and things like that. It's okay to feel like shit. It's okay to struggle. It's not okay to feel like shit about feeling like shit. Like it's almost like judging yourself, like telling yourself like, oh, I feel like crap. Why I can't feel? Why I shouldn't be feeling this way? This is
Yeah.
like now putting that blame, that shame on top
Yes.
of emotions that are already there, whether it's fear, anxiety, anger, anxiety, shame, whatever. Now you're piling it on top of that, and it's like no, no, all that, like you had said, a lot of what I've learned, and I've I'm not a doctor or anything like that. This is just going through my own journey of healing, and even just the books I read and the people that that I've learned from is a lot of these emotions, they just need to be felt in the body, like
yeah,
you had said, like really just in the body, and allowing them to space to be there and just to be felt without
Exactly.
judgment, so they can move, so they can be
Exactly.
released. And
yeah,
so I think it's a beautiful thing the way you illustrated that, Vanessa, because I think that's a
yeah,
really, really big part of
absolutely. And
healing.
I think understanding that we can't put timelines on it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it's when we put that pressure, both healing physically and emotionally. I want to tell you
yeah,
guys, I haven't told anybody this. This is actually kind of cool. So, losing my mom was one of the most difficult things that I'd
yeah,
ever gone through, even outside of getting sick. Like
yeah,
it was like someone launched a rocket and it hit me in the chest. And I'll probably tear up talking about it.
yeah,
But it was at a time where I was really, really sick with Lyme. And it was, and then my grandparents died. So my mom's like, I had my grandmother, my grandfather, who were very close to me, and then my mom all
yeah.
die within a 2 month period of each other. So it was like
Wow.
boom, boom,
Oh
boom, boom,
my
boom, boom, boom.
god.
And
Yeah.
then Lyme at the same time, I'd got my pick line put in. So I'm walking around with like the pick line. Joe's knows what I'm talking about. Like
Yeah,
pick line hanging out, and you got a white bandage around your arm
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
all this stuff. And like I'm in a wheelchair at this time, and I'm just like, man, like this feels so heavy.
yeah,
And even as I began to recover from this, like I realized that emotionally, like I still held on to a lot of stuff. Like you bury it, right? Like you
yeah,
you
yeah,
bury it, and it comes back up until you kind of surrender to it and you feel it and you let it go. And I never realized how important that was or how it affected my health.
yeah,
And I was actually riding in the car this past weekend, And I've been good, man. I've been traveling. I've been doing stuff. Joe and I often talk about taking your symptoms with you, put them in a sack, and living life
Yeah.
regardless. And
Same. Yeah.
that's huge. You got to continue to live life. You can't allow it to completely shut you down, and it will. But
Yeah.
as I'm in the car, and this is kind of the spiritual aspect for me. I'm I feel like I've finally made peace with my mom's death, and I think that it's a huge part of my healing journey because I carry that grief with
Mm.
me. So as we're in the car, um, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the song "Somewhere Under a Rainbow," but it's sing by
Yeah.
this huge the Hawaiian guy, like
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful. So that was my mom's favorite song, and she would put it on YouTube and she would listen to it. My Noah, when he was my oldest, would listen to it over and over again, and he would hum it. And I had it played at my mom's funeral. I had someone come in like a Hawaiian with a ukulele and play it like the way it was meant to be played, and I
Yeah.
lost it in my mom's funeral.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
absolutely lost it.
Yeah.
And I'm in the car and I have it on my phone, but I don't really listen to it because I know it prompts emotion. I'm thinking, and it comes up and just tears, like I'm sobbing in the car
Yeah. Yeah.
uncontrollably. And I thought, dude, my mom's passed. I think it's been 11 years now. And what I realized is there's still so much emotion, and that emotion is tied to physical sensations. And as it's coming through, I kind of, and like I said, this might be on the woo woo side for some, but this is my absolute faith in God. As it comes through, like I was like, God, just let there be a sign that my mom is still here with me, and this helped me with the grief. And the very next, so my daughter looks just like my mom did as a kid.
Mm.
And the moment that I said, like, send me a sign,
Yeah.
um, a physical sign was like, as soon as like I opened my eyes, a physical sign that said Savannah, which is my daughter's name, was there with an arrow pointing up. And this is ironic because I'm driving up to Columbia.
Yeah.
Columbia is west, Savannah
Yeah.
is south. So it
Yeah.
just all the things like that. And I just had this overwhelming sense of peace. And where this comes, in that moment, generally when these feelings would come up, I'd be like, I got to let it go. My mom's passed 11 years ago. It doesn't serve me anything of sitting there. I
Yeah.
have to let it go. But I had this beautiful moment of healing because I chose to, like, I feel safe now to be able to do that. Like, and like I did, I
Yeah.
sobbed. And I was telling Joe a couple weeks ago, I haven't cried in God knows how long. And I
Yeah.
was able to get all that out. And it was such a great release. And at a moment, all right, cool. My mom's watching down on me through my daughter. And
Mm.
that's what I felt of it. And as I'm sitting there, I'm writing in my journal and I'm like, man, as Joe and I go on this healing journey, we learn new stuff all the time. And kind of the message I got is like, the lesson that I keep having to learn is I'm trying to fight and claw my way to healing. And you never get there like that. It is a total
No.
state of surrender. And we use this reference in our class. Um, Another story, and then I'll shut up. There's a place called Harper's Ferry in West Virginia, and it's two rapids that come into
Yeah. I know
one
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, one river. And the first time that I went on that, you're in a tube, you drop in and you hit the rapids and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to grab for all these stones. And there's nothing
Yeah.
that you can do. You have to go with the flow. You fight it.
Yeah.
It's just going to make you worse. You're going to flip off. You're going to drown. So
Yeah.
I let go and I went with the flow and I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed the process and I began to feel safety in the surrender of whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And we don't have control over that. So giving up the idea of trying to control and dictate every single emotion and surrendering to it, feeling it, allowing it to do whatever it needs to do, and then allowing it to pass. And I've
Yeah.
found so much healing and just healing from Lyme disease and
Mhm.
emotional, like lots of trauma growing up in just the state of surrender. It's been so huge to me. And honestly, a lot of that
Yeah.
I learned from Joe going through this. He used to tell me to surrender all the time. And I'd be like, bro, I want to punch you in the face. How am I supposed to strong emotions and these strong physical sensations? And it ties back to what I did. These strong emotions are tied to physiological symptoms. Like
Yeah.
the connection
Yeah.
between them is massive. So
Yeah.
sorry, I went on a
No, I
huge
love those stories.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like I need to start a whole YouTube series just on signs and messages from heaven that I've received
You
because
should.
you
That's
won't
amazing.
even believe
Yeah.
I had a message from my dad during a live coaching call
Wow.
2 weeks ago, and I have it on video, and
That's
I'll
amazing.
share it. But it's insane.
that's really
Um,
cool.
oh, there's so much more than we know to this. Like
Oh, for
to
sure.
touch on the grief
Yeah.
portion. Um, things, and like you said, it's been 11 years and this came up. Well, things surface to heal. They
Yeah.
don't surface to hurt us. And that
Yeah.
is like my
Mm,
point that I drive through to my members.
Mhm.
that's
It's
beautiful.
always surfacing to
Yep.
heal you, whether it's a symptom, a sensation, an
Abs-
emotion, whatever it is, it's there for you. So it's not out to get you, right? So that's like
Yeah.
this the core messaging. And what you described is something that I always say that we're grieving and healing. That grieving leads to healing. And through this emotional work, I've come to a place, and many of my members have as well, where feeling regulates us,
Yeah.
emotions ground us, and
Mhm.
grieving heals us.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like pivotal
Mhm.
because I have, I will say, if I'm feeling, anxious or something, I'm feeling that there's some sort of activation, most of the time it is an emotion that I haven't made time for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we talk about it, I'm not saying you got to cry all day long every
Yeah.
day, like do this. Like you don't even need to cry,
Yeah.
right? But making dedicated time and space for grief, for
Mhm.
emotion is key. It doesn't
Right.
need all of your time.
Yeah.
And that's why I intentionally set these grief sessions for myself because I know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's there. Like I know, I feel it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, right now I don't have the time. I'm in a call,
Mhm.
so I'm gonna sit with this after.
Mhm.
And so, I make that dedicated time and space, and I start to see how expansive it is, how it can change you on a physiological level, and how it can regulate you. Like,
Yeah.
what a mind blowing, discovery when I was like, what? I would have this release just like Josh explained, and then be completely back in my body,
Yeah.
present, grounded, stable. And that's what I mean when I say that, it's in the feeling that I find myself. It's
Mhm.
in the emotion that I can regulate. But
Mhm.
that takes time to cultivate. If you
Yeah.
have zero capacity for
Exactly.
emotion and you don't even know what it is, we
Yeah.
need to start somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that's amazing because yeah, like these things they don't come up. All of the symptoms, all of the chronic illness, all of the sensations and stuff like that, they're coming up because it's something that we need to address and feel, and we need to this is my experience too. There needs to be some changes around how we do these things, how we regulate, how we nurture our bodies in a lot of ways. And I've had times where, I've been triggered by things that come up, whether it's cycles, repeating patterns, or whatever. And sometimes I get in my head, like, man, this again, like I'm going through that again, like this again. And it's like, no, there's still layers of like healing and then also choosing differently. This is the other thing too. This is,
Yeah.
I,
Can we touch on that first
yeah,
about the
yeah,
story?
yeah,
Because
the
that's
story.
a big deal for me is
Yeah. Let's talk about
everybody
it.
gets stuck in the story.
Yeah.
And it's the story that a lot of the time can increase the
Yeah.
sensation. So what I have, the work that I do with my clients is we uncouple the story
Mhm.
from the sensation.
Yeah.
We uncouple the story from the emotion.
Yep.
And then what do we have when we uncouple it? And what do? We're not forcing like get
Yeah.
away. We're
Yeah. Yeah.
saying, can we create space
Mm.
and say that this is all allowed to be
Yeah.
here, but right
Uh-huh.
now my attention is going to go to the sensation instead of the story,
Yep. Yep.
right? Or to the emotion instead of the story. And then you have this rawness, the real
Yep.
purity of the emotion, of the sensation, and you can sit with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where safety is
Yeah.
cultivated. So
Exactly.
it's in that uncoupling. You gave that perfect example.
Yep.
How am I still feeling this?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
states like this. We're judging the state again. We're
Uh,
judging it, and then we need to fix it.
yep.
No, we're like, okay, this is where I'm at. I
Yeah.
don't need to follow the story. Can I
Uh-huh.
go into the body and can I support this? Simple as that.
Absolutely.
Not so
Yeah.
simple, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Oh
This is
no,
yeah. We make it sound simple, but it's hard. Yeah, it's
yeah,
tough.
it is.
Josh.
And this work is, I think that's the unfortunate part too. Is a lot of this work is made to seem like it's very simple, and it's not. It's some of this work has been some of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do in my life. But is it worth it?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. And I just I have a question for you, Vanessa, and I know that it's grief, but how many people do you have that come into Haven or whatnot that have physical symptoms or chronic illness or stuff because of unprocessed emotions or whatnot? Do you believe that that's a large? Obviously, we know that there's real infections and stuff like that, but what I want to be able to portray to people that are listening is that obviously we validate that people are going through real struggles, but the emotional component is so big, and even Joe on
Yeah.
this and you don't really realize it until you get into it and realize that there's a lot that needs to be felt. There's a lot that needs to be healed. And that
Yeah.
so much of our journey just as humans is emotional regulation that we can process through feeling safe. So I'm just curious how many people that you have come in through Haven, not just for grief, but do a lot of them come in with like chronic issues, like in health and stuff like that, that's manifested through grief or
Yeah,
not?
so that's a good question, and I probably can't give you an exact number, but what I typically see and what I'm seeing from like a theme perspective is the majority of people who join my membership initially come in for nervous system
Yeah.
regulation, right?
Yeah.
Half of the membership is nervous system, half is grief
Yeah.
and emotions, like all emotions.
Right.
But what's funny is that the majority of people, or have been up until more recently, staying in the nervous system section and terrified to go in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Yeah.
And
People
what's
hate emotions.
funny,
Yeah.
yeah, and what's funny is that, or not so funny, but amazing really, is how much their brain will fight them to go into that section.
Mhm.
Right.
And so I see that even people who've come from like, typical brain retraining programs come in and they're like, I've been training for so many years, I'm stuck. I really want to try something different. And I'm like, great. Once I get to know them a little bit better, I realize they have a lot of grief. And I
Yeah.
would say that every single person on this journey has grief. And that's why I have it in
Yeah.
my membership,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like that level two
Yeah.
of like, hey, you've already rewired it. You know that you know this stuff. You've visualized, you've done all of these things. You have capacity for this now.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that people who've been stuck, when you find the people who are just stuck, and it's like, I've been rewiring and, nothing, whatever it is, I'm kind of stuck in this state. And then I start to bring them into the grief area, and they start realizing that we can do grief in a safe way too. I'm not
Yeah.
throwing you into this, like,
Yeah.
where you see those like live events where people are like, ah, like
Yeah.
wailing, and like,
Yeah.
no, we're talking about safety with grief, this gentle way to expand your capacity. And the transformations I see alone in my grief somatic class that I run like monthly, it's wild. People are like, all the pain in my hips is gone. You
Wow.
know,
That's
for the first time, was able to go for a walk after.
yeah.
I felt elevated for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'd think it'd be the opposite, because you're going into some place that feels heavy. And yet,
Mm-hmm.
that's this release, right?
Yeah.
The moving with emotion. We move with grief. We live with it. We expand with it. We grow with it.
Mm.
And I would say that every single person that I have ever worked with prior to my membership has had this grief,
Yeah.
and it's needed and desired to be felt and witnessed even.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have people who join just for the grief, and then they gravitate towards the grieving. They go through it all because they feel confident in it, and they want nervous system support. So it's
Yeah.
really cool to see how it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. It really does. I wanted to touch on something real quick before like we ended, because this
Sure.
is something that I've experienced myself, but I've also, and this kind of goes back into the stories and the judgment and all of that sort of stuff. Um, maybe we could end with some like a quick tip or something if people are struggling with this, because what I've experienced and what I've seen other people experience is when they're kind of feeling emotions, they get caught back up in their head, and it's uh, like I said in the past, like I shouldn't be feeling this, but other ways is like some people are like, oh no, this is not this. I don't want to feel this, or I
Yes.
hope this doesn't last for longer, or what does this mean, or you know, and it's not even a conscious thing we do. It's a subconscious thing that often people do, and I've done in the past too, where I'm like, oh man, like this, and some people will also go too much in the head where they're like, I need to figure this out. Where is this coming from? Like, why is this creeping up? And like I think you had said, earlier, like you got to come back to the body and not get in the head, because I think there's a lot of also other I've seen coaches and there's other people that like we have to figure out exactly where this came from and all of this stuff. And in my perspective, sometimes that keeps you up in your head and not so much actually feeling and healing
Right.
correctly. So I don't know if if that leads to anything, or if you have any final tips for people that are still caught up in their head, whether it's the stories, whether it's trying to figure it all out. Like again,
Yes.
we have grief from times where we are never going to figure out, like
Right.
some of the stuff gets trapped from times when we're like little child, children, we don't
Yeah.
have the memories, so things like that,
Yeah.
you know.
So, just going back to that
Yeah,
idea of
yeah,
we don't have to figure it out.
yeah,
We don't even have to remember or find out when it came from or where it came from, because then that means we're trying to fix it. And
exactly.
the truth of the matter is, it's allowed to be here.
Hmm.
Everything's allowed to be here. And when we create capacity for all of it, and when I tell you, this is what freedom in life means for me, is capacity for emotion, capacity for sensation, capacity for all experiences. Because I'm going to give it to you real right now, for the rest of your life your body will create sensations, because
Yeah,
that's what it does.
it does.
Right? It doesn't mean you're going to be chronically ill, but you're going to feel stuff, and
uh,
you're going to lose stuff in
yeah,
people and things, and you're going to experience these. So just don't judge it,
yeah,
allow it, make
yeah,
space for it,
yeah,
and get curious. That curious observer that we talk about,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Kind of like, okay, I feel that there's an emotion here. Sometimes you might not even know the emotion,
yeah,
but you know there's something there. So
yeah,
can you allow it for a moment and sit with it, be uncomfortable with it,
yeah,
and just allow, and then weave in safety with it, whether you're going to anchor into the ground, whether you're going to hold yourself, or whether you're going to be with someone and let them witness you.
yeah,
I think that's paramount, that's key. So no, don't judge,
yeah,
uncouple the story. You don't have to follow it. It's just our
Right.
thoughts are always a product
yeah,
of the state that we're
yeah.
in. So
Yeah.
like, don't call your nervous system's bluff, in a sense,
Uh-huh,
meaning it's
exactly.
just a product of the state that you're in, and
Yeah,
your state
Yeah.
feels unsafe. And you don't have to
Yeah.
fix your state. That's another
yeah,
one.
yeah,
I'm not a proponent of shifting and fixing all day. I am a
yeah,
proponent of supporting. Let's
yeah.
support the state we're in. Whether
Mhm.
we shift or not, I don't care. Outcome independence. The
Yeah.
Yeah.
message
That's
is being received, right?
yeah. And
So
that's
I don't know if that even answered the question you
No, it
asked,
does.
but
It's
um,
perfect. It's perfect because yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah. It's
ties
a good.
into a lot. So with everything we go through, it's ultimate like surrender, like trying to
Yeah,
fix and change everything, and understanding like the physical stuff that comes with it, like the fear. It's your biology responding to emotional input. Like that's it. Like
yeah,
once we learn that we no longer have to fear everything, that and this is great. Like I use this saying often. I'm not sure if you've watched Helmet stuff. Like
yeah, I
we
love
film
we
him.
love helmet.
great guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
we love
Said,
helmet.
in the journey, like, when stuff, sometimes stuff doesn't come up and there's things that we have to seek. Fear is your compass. Like where there is fear, that's where you really need to begin to go. And, whether it's
Yeah,
fear of experiencing these emotions, the sensations attached to the emotions, like doing certain things, and, grief, fear, trauma, like you can all kind of put them in a ball together.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, I think in closing, we can realize that all of these emotions can have an impact on our health if we don't manage them correctly. And managing, like
yeah,
you said, trying to fix the emotions never fixes the problem. It makes it
yeah,
worse.
yeah,
never.
Like it just from our perspective, what we found is surrendering, feeling like whatever needs to happen. And
yeah,
we're not going to be able to control the outcome. And that's okay. That's okay.
hmm,
But I've found that as I've allowed myself to process through, to surrender, that life has gotten exponentially easier. And even today, even not in the realms of grief, but the kids are crazy. I mean, the stories that I could tell you today, some of them are gross, but just with having toddlers and all these things that are going on, it's out of my control. Like I can't
yeah,
control that. So I
yeah,
control what I can. And we're sitting in the car, like I have Christian, Kobe, and Savannah, and they're all in the back, and it's loud and obnoxious. And I'm just like, dude, this is so frustrating. I'm getting angry. And I feel my nervous system getting fried. and I just surrendered to it. Like I was like, I don't need to attach a story. I'm just going to surrender. If you guys want to act like goofballs, you guys are kids. It is what it is till it isn't.
Yeah.
You know what? It changed completely. Whereas as
Yeah.
parents, we know like all these things can be going on and frying our nervous system. But when we allow ourselves to just kind of surrender, feel, let go, not
Yeah.
try to fix, it gets better. It really does. So
That's the biggest takeaway is stop trying to fix yourself. You're not
Yeah.
broken. You
Exactly. I have
just
a
need safety. Like
yeah.
that's literally it. It's
Yep.
the surrendering, the safety, the acceptance, and just continue to show up, right?
Yep. I have a
yeah,
book that I've that's titled "Stop Trying to Fix Yourself."
No way.
There's one. When we were talking, we were talking about allowing the emotions. Actually a good book that has helped me is "Stop Trying to Fix Yourself." Another one is it's called "The Happiness Trap." I don't know if you've ever heard this.
I have. I've
Yeah,
heard
I
of it.
love
I've
that book.
read
I've recommended it
it.
to so many people. It's for people like myself who struggled to feel emotions, who judged emotions, and then also when you started allowing yourself to feel, to not get caught up in the stories.
Yes.
It's a really good book for anyone. I'm not affiliated with them, honestly. I don't even know, I forget even the person is, but it's something that I always recommend to people in my
And
class.
I'm glad you brought up joy because it's something that I talked about yesterday with Chaz. It's like a whole episode on joy. I think you guys did
Yeah,
it as
yeah,
well,
yeah. I
except I
did
talked about
recommend it.
joy and grief. And just
Yeah,
to touch on that quickly, if you're out there and you are being selective as to which emotions you're allowing,
yeah,
meaning like, I'm just going to elevate all day, I'm just going to allow these things, then I'm going to tell you that you are also robbing yourself of the full experience of
yeah,
being a human because when we make room for grief, for anger,
yeah,
frustration, fear,
yeah.
guilt, shame, we make more room
For
for
joy.
joy,
Yeah,
for hope,
exactly.
for
yeah,
love, for healing, for expansion and capacity. Anyone who's gone into the depths of grief feels joy way more intensely. And so
Yeah,
I want you to also know that that's another incentive to
yeah.
go into grief because it's a gateway to joy as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. I think that's a great way to end it for sure. We
yeah.
could talk for hours on
Yeah.
this, but I
Yeah, we
think
could always
it's
talk with Vanessa for hours. It's a
yeah,
conversation.
I love you guys.
yeah. I love
Yeah,
you
we
too.
love you
We're
too.
we're,
We
we're so
appreciate
aligned in
you.
so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming by today.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Vanessa. Anything you wanna share at the end
Yeah,
here? I mean,
we're
we'll
auctioning
put
off
your
Joe's
stuff in the
hat
bio.
for
Your links.
Oh,
authenticity.
yeah, I'll share it. You guys already, you'll find me on Instagram
Yep.
and my membership haven as well,
Yep.
where I am a grief guide and a nervous system guide as well, and just doing, the work that you guys are doing, which is guiding people to hope and healing, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going to plug
Yep.
Awesome.
myself. That's it.
No.
There we go.
We'll put your
I'll
stuff in
put
there.
it down in the
Sure.
description, guys. So, and all of ours will as well. So, yep. Appreciate you guys watching.